Act 5, Scene 5 of Macbeth, modern translation, takes place in Dunsinane within the castle, Macbeth and Seaton and his soldiers with drums and colours. And Macbeth says, "Hang our banners at the outer walls of the castle. The cry from everyone is still they come. Our castle's strength will laugh at their forces. Let them lie outside the castle walls until famine and disease kills them. If it wasn't the fact that so many of our own soldiers have joined their ranks, we'd have gone out and met them beard to beard on the battlefield and beat them." And there's a cry of women within, and Macbeth asks, "What is that noise?" Seaton says, "It is the cry of women, my good lord," and leaves. Macbeth says, "I've almost forgotten what it's like to be afraid. There was a time when I would have been terrified to hear a shriek in the night, and my hair would stand on end upon hearing a simple ghost story. But now I've become so accustomed to horrors that they cannot frighten me any longer." Seaton arrives, and Macbeth asks him, "What was that cry for?" And then Seaton says, "The Queen is dead, my lord." He doesn't sugarcoat it, does he? And Macbeth says she would have died sometime anyway, and I'll be analysing that little bit of speech in the next video and in the ebook, so stay tuned for that. That news was always going to come. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps upon us day after day until the very end of time, and every day that we spend along the way simply brings us closer to our deaths. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but an illusion. A poor actor that struts and worries about his hour on the stage and then is never heard from again. Life is just a tale told by an idiot full of sounds and emotions, but actually meaning nothing in the end. A messenger then comes in and says, "You came to tell me something. What is it?" The messenger says, "Gracious my lord, I should tell you what I've seen, but I do not know how to begin." And Macbeth says, "Just tell me." The messenger says, "As I stood watch on the hill, I looked towards Birnam Wood, and I thought I saw that the wood began to move." Macbeth says, "Liar and slave." The messenger says, "You can punish me if what I've said isn't true. Just 3 miles away, you can see it coming, like I've said. A moving grove of trees." Macbeth says, "If you are lying, I will hang you alive from the nearest tree until you starve to death. If what you say is true, then you may do the same to me. My belief in what the devil told me through those witches is beginning to falter. They told me don't be afraid until Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane, and now a wood is coming towards Dunsinane. Let's prepare for battle." If the messenger is correct, there's no point in running away or waiting here in the castle. I'm beginning to grow weary of life, and I want to see the world turned upside down in chaos. Ring the alarm bell. Blow, wind, come destruction. At least we'll die with our armour on. So Macbeth hears of his wife's death in this scene and responds by saying that, in a very interesting way as well, he responds by saying that she should have died hereafter. There are two ways of interpreting this line. Either Macbeth means she would have died anyway, which would symbolise the complete breakdown of their relationship. Her dying is almost an annoyance, a distraction, as he's planning for battle. Or he means she shouldn't have died yet, it should have been at a later date. And this second interpretation doesn't necessarily mean their relationship was a bed of roses, but it's still better than the first. This scene is notable for Macbeth's soliloquy, one of the best-known speeches in all of Shakespeare's work, and one that is incredibly moving. Having just heard of his wife's death, Macbeth considers what's left of his own life. He speaks about the trivial nature of life, how it's essentially worthless because all people do is creep from day to day until eventually they die. He paints people as fools and idiots, playing parts and lying to themselves about the true nature of life. Now, this is one of Shakespeare's most impressive speeches. It's rich with imagery and metaphor, and in fact many of the extended metaphors he uses throughout the play appear to tie together nicely in this speech. The imagery of clothing and of falsehood, of appearance versus reality, of daggers covered in blood, painted pictures, they're all in one sense part of the theatre, and this soliloquy uses the theatre as a metaphor for life, how people play their part, tread the stage, and then dies. Very, very clever from Shakespeare. Shakespeare gives us the image of people scrambling around in the dark with candles trying to find their way. Lighted fools the way to dusty death. We pity them because they're fools, and all of human effort and achievement are simply shadows thrown by the candles, and the acting he does is only a version of reality. Life, Macbeth tells us, is just a story told by an idiot, and it means absolutely nothing. Now this is deeply depressing stuff, and when he's interrupted by the messenger who tells him that Birnam Wood is moving, we see Macbeth finally completely stripped of all his self-confidence and assurances. The truth of his situation becomes apparent to him. He realizes the witches have deceived him, that he has been wrong all along. He's killed his king, his friends, possibly his wife for nothing. It's a very painful moment for the audience. Instead of feeling satisfaction at his realization, we perhaps feel pity for Macbeth. In fact, Shakespeare has worked hard throughout the play to ensure that we can pity him, and especially here at the end of the scene. Despite knowing that it's all futile, that he's been tricked, and that life as he described it is just white noise with no meaning, he refuses to yield. And this refusal to give in is what gives him back some of his former glory. He stands up against the petty pace from day to day and cries no to fate. He's alone against the tide of soldiers outside his castle, and he's prepared to see it through to the end. Regardless of how he got here, his principles at this point are quite admirable.